Hi guys, Ryu here from Blender Bros, and let's wrap it up. We finished modeling, so what we need to do now is check if everything is okay. Also, we need to organize our scene a little bit. Okay, so let's collapse these, these collections here, and let's see, what's this. These are all random pieces that need to be placed in respective folders. So let's click on that, shift click on this, press M here, and move it to core. And then let's move these and move it to core. Now these should be in a separate collection. We're gonna put it in new collection called wheels instances. Click OK. There we go. And we can move this here. You cannot put them in wheels because they actually copies of that collection. So there you go. And we have cutters here, right? So perfect. So now usually what I do, right, is, I go around and check if everything is fine, but we've been modeling very carefully, and we've been, sort of cautious with our topology and the shading, so I think everything should be fine. But usually what I do is, just kind of walk around this mesh and check if everything's fine. There you go. See, first thing I found here is a bull tool out of order, so we need to move it above. Boom, there we go. Things like that can actually bite you when you're gonna be rendering, because let's apply it, because the shading is gonna be off. Okay, so you need to be very careful. Let's just create a chamfer here and chamfer here in the bottom, and peachy. There we go. That's better. Cool. So that's that. And other than that, I think we're fine. Check if everything has a bevel, because it's important. Bevel will be creating kind of nice highlights. If you have this kind of a situation, let's say, let's grab this, and you want to make this a bit more round, what you can do is press Ctrl+1 to add subdivision modifier, and it will work. You're gonna have some weird shading here on these elements. Reason being is that because this is a massive angle, what you can do, you can delete that, okay, and then you press Ctrl+F, and you choose grid fill, okay, which will fill this element with quads, and then you'll see that the shading on this edge here is gonna get fixed. You see this kind of like a nasty pull. That's because the subdivision is actually there's a massive angle here, and the subdivision is actually creating this kind of a nasty sort of a shading here. So cool. So let's texture this, guys. Texturing is really easy. And we're gonna be using BSDF materials, which means they're gonna be just basic procedural materials from Blender without any texture maps. Okay, so very simple texturing, very basic texturing, but you can get some really beautiful results with that. So you don't really have to texture stuff in Substance Painter or Quixel Mixer to get really nice renders. You just simply have to know how to operate with light, which is something I'm going to be teaching you in the next video. So let's, texture it. So the easiest way to texture stuff in Blender is to select one bit, right? Go to this option here, to this panel, which is for texturing, and simply add a new texture. Now we're going to expand the window here on the bottom. So move your mouse here, and when your mouse changes to this crosshair, pull it out, go here and change to shader editor. Now this is what we refer to as Blender nodes. Okay, we have this BSDF node, which is a principled material, and here we have material output. Okay, this is a very basic sort of a material setup, and you can adjust the parameter of this material here, okay, using this node, or you can do it through here. Okay, so I want you to watch this mat now. So if I'm going to, for example, change color of it or darkness of it, you'll see that this node will update automatically together with, you see that panel on the right, because basically this is the same information. So let's say I wanted to make it metallic, so I need to change the type of this material from non-metallic to metallic. So I'm going to move my slider to 1, because it's either false or true. Okay, so 0 or 1. And then we want to make it a bit more rough and a bit darker, so kind of like a grayish, sort of like a steel color, right? And we cannot really see anything here because this is not a rendered view. But what we can do is go to Look Depth, which is this button here. It's kind of like a render preview, and by default you're gonna be using one of these images here. but we can load our custom. This is a custom image I downloaded from polyheaven.com. and it's called Abandoned Slipway, and I advise you download it and use it, because this is an HDRI that produces a very flat light, which means the lighting is kind of diffused by the clouds. Basically, it's a cloudy day light, okay? So the whole sky is covered with clouds, and the sun has been dispersed, it's been sort of diffused by the clouds, and the lighting is very flat but very even, which will allow you to create a really interesting renders. But also it's fantastic for previewing materials because you don't have any reflections, like harsh reflections, and you don't have any color cast. If I switch it, for example, to this one, you see I get the color cast from the from the HDRI. They come with different colors, and this one is really neutral. It's kind of a bit bluish because of the clouds. Clouds have a kind of a bluish color. The light that comes through clouds has a bluish color. Shadow in general is a bit more bluish than sunlight, and this is why it's a bit kind of like a toned down, but it's very flat and nice to look at. So the way you download it, right, you need to go to the website called polyheaven.com, and there you go, that's it. And you grab this one and download either 4K here, okay, or 8K, it's up to you, and just download this HDRI. And once you do that, what you want to do is you want to go here, click on the cogwheel, and you want to install it from a file from your computer. And once you do that, you'll be able to see that HDRI after you save preferences in this menu here, okay? So you can choose it and work with it. And I would also advise you to load the same HDRI to your world node setup. So here, switch to world. And now, because we have this Node Wrangler add-on enabled, right? We enabled this in one of the previous videos. If you didn't, just do it now. So enable this add-on, save preferences, and this will allow you to use shortcut keys with node setup, okay? So if I click here on background and press Ctrl T, I'm gonna get this kind of like a tree, tree of three nodes popping up here, and they're gonna be automatically connected. And what you do with this, you simply load the same HDRI that you downloaded from Polyheaven. So Abandoned Slipway, boom. So when I switch to rendered view now, I will see the exactly same lighting in my look depth and my rendered view, which is what I want, okay? So for now, let's just collapse this. We don't need it. We're going to be using it later, so we can collapse it, okay? Cool. Once you're happy with the material, so let's say we want to make it a bit less rough, kind of a bit more metallic, so let's just reduce roughness. Also, a cool trick here is to add clear coat, which will add like a clear layer on top of your material, like you see, for example, on cars or something that's painted. And add a bit of roughness here, and this will create like a really cool additional layer for reflections. And now once you establish the material you want or you like with all the attributes, what you do is click on this piece, Ctrl I to invert selection to select everything else, shift click the one that you just put matte on, click on this arrow here and simply copy matte to select it, which will copy this matte to every single piece. Now, we of course don't want this to be a uniform color. We need to introduce some, interesting color variations, but this is a really good base to start with. Now, the cool thing about it is that we can now adjust all of them at the same time, right? So we can create, let's say, something like this, okay? And then we can add some variation of it. So for instance, let's say I want it just to be, let's just make it a little bit more rough, okay, cool. Now what I can do is I can actually copy that matte, all these settings, okay, and duplicate it and use the same settings with just a different color. So it's gonna look exactly the same, but you're gonna have a different color, right? So watch this. I'm gonna click on this one of these pieces here, or let's say on the legs, okay? We need to click on this one, by the way. So let's click on this one. And we're going to click on this number here, okay, 28, which means there are 28 pieces with this matte, okay? We're gonna copy that and sort of clone it, and now we have material 0.001, and this one is material, okay? So this is like a copy of this matte, but because we sort of copied that, sort of duplicated it, now we can individually adjust the color of these pieces without the necessity of repeating all these settings that we performed on the original matte, which is really cool, right? And then we can just simply select the bits we want, and again, copy, copy the matte to the parts we want to copy to. Same here, we can just copy that. So select these and copy, and then we could create, this one could be also darker, so darker, and these bits could be darker. So copy, and this could be darker too, Then you can just keep on designing. In fact, you know what? These could be brighter, right? And these could be darker. I think it's gonna be better. This could be brighter too. There we go. That's actually quite interesting. Let me see that. Now this one should be like a rubber, so we could copy that and increase roughness really high, remove the metallic value, and make it really dark. Okay, so this is gonna be kind of like a rubberish material because it makes sense. These buggers could be darker. I think that looks better. This could also be darker, or this could be rubber, to be honest. Kind of like that. This is cool. These definitely could be darker. Now we could separate the screws as well. So we could select these screws, right? And then Control plus them until you select everything. Press P selection to split them. Select the screws, Shift select this one, and make the screws darker, which is gonna kind of make them pop. Same here. This could be, an element that actually pops, which is gonna really bring nice kind of like a differentiation to this design. And that looks pretty cool, guys. So we have this dominating sort of like a brighter tone, and we have this kind of like accent elements in the bottom, being darker, which looks pretty cool. All right, guys, so let's add a plane, so mesh and plane. We're gonna make it larger. Now remember that this bot is quite huge, so you might actually see some clipping here. If that happens, simply the area is becoming invisible in viewport, so you can go here to view, and you can actually change this to, let's say, 2 kilometers, and boom, there you go. Now this is a little bit too big. We don't need it to be that big, and let's just add some matte to it. So let's add material. We're gonna make it a bit darker, and we could make this metallic and sort of reflective, and we're definitely gonna add some clear coat to it, and maybe a bit of clear coat roughness. And now it's easier to manipulate with the background now, because planes are infinitely thin. If I click here, you can't really see the plane anymore. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add a bit of a solidification. So Control A and apply scale, and we're gonna go here and add some solidification to it. Okay, so solidify, and we're gonna just solidify downwards. Okay, so downwards, right? So when I go to side view, I can actually see that plane. And we're gonna drop it down. Now you're gonna drop it down really precisely, so there's a contact between the surface and the wheels, okay? That's important for contact shadows, right? So occasionally I see models that are just kind of hanging in the air. Don't do that. If it's actually meant to stand on the floor, put it on the floor, okay? Cool. Now let's go to side view here, and we're gonna add a camera, okay? But before we add a camera, we can actually adjust our view to the way we want to look at that model. So what I'm thinking is that slightly kind of like angled view, from this angle, where we're going to be able to see more of the shape, of this model, okay? And we're also going to change the focal length. And you can actually change focal length in the viewport by adjusting this slider, okay? So let's set it here to 135, which is going to be kind of like a kind of a telephoto portrait lens. And we could create this kind of a view here, sort of like this, right? And that will do. And let's just press N, and now we're gonna add the camera. So let's press on page down with machine tools and add smart cam to view. This is fantastic because it will allow you to add camera to view from the perspective you're looking at, which is brilliant. Zoom in with your mouse, okay? Then let's go to output settings, and we're going to change this to 2560 by 1440. Page down and lock to view. Now when you move your mouse okay, in and out, or you pan, you'll be moving with the camera, so be careful. So when you hold control, you can scroll in and out, because scrolling actually goes in increments, whereas when you hold control and press your middle mouse button, you can do it in a smooth move. And then when you hold shift, you can pan. So we're gonna be adjusting the camera here. And when you want to rotate it, you want to click on something and then rotate with your middle mouse button. It's a bit easier, okay? So remember that. So I have something selected, and then you can set the camera really nicely. Now, framing is essential, guys, and it's everything when you trying to create a compelling image. So what you want to do here is you don't want to put it in the middle, okay? The reason being is that if you put it in the middle, the image is going to be visually right side heavy, okay, because the arm is on the right side, and the attention is going to be here, and this part is going to be redundant. Don't do that mistake, okay? So, move this somewhere offset it from the center a bit. Now, because our object stays on the ground, it's grounded, you need to give it some space on the ground, some kind of a foundation to stand on. So the distance between the edge of the frame and the wheel here should be kind of substantial and possibly larger than the one here on the top, okay? We can move it a little bit outside, kind of zoom it out, move it somewhere here, so it's sort of offset from the center. There's a space here, and there's a breathing space here, and you got space for a logo. See what I mean? So you got space for a logo here, space for some name here, and you can put some, I don't know, Blender logo, whatever. And this is a decent framing, okay? And then you can fine tune it. You can move it a bit closer here, closer there. It's, depends on what you want, but again, slight offset, give it some ground, breathing space, basics of, framing. Page down and unlock from view, so then when you move your mouse, the camera will not move. Now when you want to go in the camera view again, what you need to do is click on the camera and press Ctrl-0 on the numpad, and then you're in the camera view again, okay? Cool. Now this plane and camera, shift click them, press M and new collection, and we're gonna call it render, okay? So that's important. Now, you don't really need anything outside the camera view, which means this place here, this plane here, it's a waste of space. It's gonna cover or obstruct the light. So once you set the environment, let's just rotate it a bit so it's gonna parallel to the lens here. And we're going to move it, so GXX, and move it over there like this, right? Then we're gonna grab this edge here and EZ and move it up. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna GXX and move it out there, and we're gonna grab this edge and Ctrl-B that, and we're going to create an infinite background, and then right click, shade smooth, and auto smooth, okay? So now when I'm gonna look through the camera, right, Ctrl-0, we can adjust it. So SYY to scale it a bit, GYY to move it here, and now SYY to scale it a bit. Now we don't need this bit, okay? So delete the faces. We also don't need this bit, so Ctrl-R, move this edge here to the bottom, right? Select this face, delete it. The reason why I'm doing this is because the more environment you obstruct, the more light you obstruct. We don't want to obstruct light, okay? We want light to flow freely, because you want to have nice, decent lighting here. Now, because we are in look-dev, we're actually looking through the EV render view. Well, we want to do this in cycles, so we're going to switch here to rendered view, and you will see that we're going to see a completely different effect here. Turn off this denoising, because denoising will be denoising image in your viewport, and one, it will take more VRAM, two, it looks like shit. So turn it off and don't worry about it. Right now, brightness of the background is really important, because the brighter it is, the more light it will reflect. I want you to watch the shadow on the bottom and see what happens. When I'm gonna make the background darker, the darker the bottom becomes, because there are less, fewer reflections. The brighter the bottom gets, okay, the brighter the this area is gonna become, because the light reflects from that area and reflects underneath the bot, creating a bit more light over there, okay? So I want to go with a brighter background, but what I can do is I can make it a little bit bluish, okay? Not too much, so I can reduce the saturation here, kind of a bit bluish, so I'm gonna offset this a little bit, okay? So, just a tiny bit of blue hint of blue over there, and that blue actually gonna reflect back on the bot. Now it is a bit dark, okay, so we're gonna increase the power of this HDRI. So let's just scroll this up, go here to shade editor, go to world, and we're gonna zoom in here, and we're gonna increase the power here to 1.4. okay, boom, a bit brighter. Now I want to see where my light is coming from, okay, and I want to rotate my HDRI. Like I showed you one of the introductory videos, we're going to rotate the HDRI to see if we can get a bit more of a better light alignment. So to be able to see where the light comes from, if you're not experienced, what you can do is go to film and turn the transparent off, and then when you click on your bot and you rotate, you can see actually where the light is coming from. Light is coming from over there. Let's just switch back to 50 mil here so we can see this a little bit better, okay? This will not affect your camera focal length. Your camera focal length is still at 135, but your viewport now is at 50, okay? So you see the light is coming from over there, okay? And my camera is in here. I want to rotate it a little bit so the light comes from over there, not from over there, but from over there, because the angle between the light direction and the camera is going to be closer to 90 degrees, creating more interesting shadows. So what I want to do, I want to rotate this HDRI from here to here. So you go here to the Z, rotation on Z axis, and you simply rotate it to the left a little bit like that, okay? So now the lighting shifted to here, and it bounces kind of like, you know, frontally, shines from the front of this object and sort of reflects the camera. So let's click on camera and Control 0 and see how this actually changed. See, the lighting is much better now. It's beautiful. It's sort of, because the light comes from this direction, from right hand side, it creates beautiful shadows and highlights. Think about it, when you go outside in the evening or very early morning when the sun is in a lower angle, the world looks beautiful because of the shadows and the contrast. This is what you want. That's why the world looks really dull during noon, because the sun is on top, like, you know, in the middle of the sky, and everything looks flat. So what you want to do, you want to create some really interesting shadows with your, you know, with your model, right? So this is really nice. It's really bright. This should be a nice render, nice angle, showing a bit of a form here, some cutouts, empty spaces, you know, really nice. This should look really nice, okay? So now we already set all the rendering settings. You have the compositor set, because I showed you that in the introductory videos. If you didn't see them, go ahead and watch them, because I'm going to be repeating it in here. Everything is already set. All you need to do now is basically click render, okay? So we're gonna go here and click render image, and then we're just gonna wait for the render to finish. Now we're gonna be creating more than one render, and that's really important, okay? We're gonna be creating 2 renders. One of them is gonna be with a background, and one of them is gonna be without the background, and I'll tell you why we need 2 of them, okay? So once you finish, let's go here, save as, and make sure you're gonna save it as a TIFF, 16-bit, and no deflation, okay, no compression. So save it whenever you want to, and save. And then we're gonna close this here, right? Just close it. Now we're gonna click on the background, okay? Turn the background off in, let me just turn this transparency back on. Turn the background off in render here, okay? This one will not turn off in render, okay? This one will, all right? So turn it off in render and do this again. We need this render without the background, so we can very easily select this cutout in Photoshop very precisely to create some really cool effects that we're going to be talking about in the Photoshop editing section, okay? So this should be really quick. Save it as TIFF2, and you know, you're good to go. And that's it, guys. Then you switch basically here and you're done. Now there's one more thing I want to mention. If your computer is struggling, okay, with the rendering in rendered view, you can switch it off. Now watch this. If I'm gonna switch off scene statistics, I'm gonna turn on video memory. I'm using 3.5 out of 24 gigabytes. But if I'm gonna go back to my viewport here, I'm down to 1.7. So if you're rendering something that's really heavy and it kind of touches the limit of your graphic card memory, you might get errors from rendering, okay? So what you wanna do, you wanna go back to your 3D viewport, this one, and then render, okay? Because it's still gonna render, no problem, right? You see, it's still rendering fine. You will simply use less memory, okay? So do that. And that's it, collapse that, you're done. So, you know, save your file, so everything is saved. Now, if you want to, for example, save this HDRI for the future, okay, in this blend file, what you need to do, you need to pack it into blend file. Any textures, like for example decals or textures you're using for texturing, you want to export and for example send to someone or save for future and use it in a different computer. What you need to do, you need to pack them into blend file. The way to do this, right, let me just collapse this, okay, the way to do this is really easy, right? All you need to do is go here to file, go to external data, pack all resources, and then look what's going to happen in the bottom, right? It's going to tell you packed one files, and the file that was packed was actually this HDRI image from Polyhaven, right? This, you know, abandoned slipway, okay? That's what got packed here, all right? And this one actually now it's packed with the file. This will increase the size of your blend file, but when you open this file on a different computer, or you're going to send this file to a different person, they will be able to see that. This is how, for example, you are able to see decals in your Blender, because we packed them in the Blender file. Okay, so that's really important to note. Many people don't know about it, especially when they're starting with Blender and they're just confused, where the hell are my textures? Well, you didn't pack them, this is why you cannot see them, okay? So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next part when we're gonna be editing this image in Photoshop. See you soon.